Hello everyone, welcome today to Sex, Dance, and Entertainment, or Dance 103. I am Majesty Kekahuna, and today I'll be presenting on whether or not hip-hop should be integrated into this class. Starting off, I'll be giving a hip-hop overview. Hip-hop can be described as a form of street dance that has developed over the course of decades to a certain level of professionalism in mainstream media. In fact, many forms of hip-hop dance such as b-boying/breakdancing and the boogaloo are composed of elements found in African American dances, tap dances, and some forms of ballet, according to the Masterclass 2021. There are many other forms of hip-hop, however. As we go along, I'll be addressing them when necessary. Another way hip-hop dance culture can be described by professionals is through the various characteristics that make hip-hop what it is today. In fact, hip-hop consists of several factors, otherwise creating a social interaction paradigm through dance. According to Greg Demetriadis, hip-hop has several attributes which are reflected in present-day media. This would include graffiti or writing, rapping or music, self-awareness, and of course, one of the primary dance techniques, breakdancing. Looking at the history of hip-hop, there are many narratives that seem to surround its origin story. Through the collection of research, scholars have been able to piece together information that illustrates its mere beginnings. Analyzing hip-hop as a whole, it is important to address what will later become the mainstream dance move often practiced in the 21st century, breakdancing. Breakdancing was heavily inspired by a man called Earl Snake Hips Tucker. He would go on to portray the snake hip dance at the Cotton Club, otherwise becoming the main inspiration for what makes breakdancing what it is today. Moving on, in the South Bronx of New York City came the first recognized term of hip-hop when an African-American man by the name of DJ Kool Herc began DJing at a party in 1973. In his rendition of music, he implemented several sound breaks during an extended section of a song. Dance parties began spreading like wildfire using similar music styles, and breakdancing became popularized due to the mimicking of the same sound breaks in DJing. Further adding to this, as initially stated, hip-hop is a form of African-American rooted dances. Its emergence was due to the culture associated with the minority populations located in the Bronx. These populations included the African American, Afro-Caribbean, and Latinx communities. What was interesting about these groups were the ties and the expressionism they could explore through dance. With hip-hop music and rap often under fire of criticism, dance was largely overlooked. There is only so much that people can put into words before being expressed through other mediums. Within these economically challenged areas, in order for these populations to fulfill their free time, many of them turned to social dancing as a means of survival. In many social dancing situations, African American, Afro-Caribbean, Latinx personnel typically turned to hip-hop as a coping mechanism. Many of these individuals found solace in hip-hop due to the ability to express their self-awareness and ideologies through dance. As of today, many attributes of hip-hop are dedicated to commenting on injustices that plague the world, from racism to poverty. In addition to the history of hip-hop is the concept of sex in hip-hop. Hip-hop is already well known for its sometimes over-sexualized dancing, attire, and rap lyrics. While hip-hop can be conducted as a solo act, a duo, or even as a group, there is always a sexually explicit atmosphere that typically encompasses this form of dance. In some subcategories of hip-hop, there are concepts called freaking or grinding, which consists of two people of the opposite sex closely rubbing against each other in a sensual manner. More importantly, this can be depicted as a grinding motion where a woman places her butt on a man's crotch. The music and rap itself are incredibly sexual as well. In fact, hip-hop was one of the original forms of dance that presented the parental advisory warning for viewers. This includes Akon's sexually explicit 2006 music video, I Wanna Love You, and 50 Cent's 2003 release of Pimp. In the early 80s to 2000s, hip-hop strategically utilized the idea of selling sex, hence the over-sexualization of women in rap songs and dances. As hip-hop entered the 21st century, women's liberation slowly became more prominent. Under these circumstances, women began flipping the narrative surrounding the idea of sex and hip-hop by instead embracing their sexual appeal for their own confidence. Now focusing on dance and hip-hop, it is typically a blend of movements and subgenres of expressionism. In fact, hip-hop has fathered many dance styles and techniques. Some of the most notable dances include the boogaloo, popping and locking, the uprock, crumping, and most notably, breakdancing. Usually, hip-hop requires a lot of athletic and acrobatic gestures. This would include having a relatively linear bodily foundation to the ground, while also being able to suspend oneself using only their limbs. This is typically seen in the genre of crumping, where the dance form appears to mimic movements of engaging in fights without actually interfering with the other party. Additionally, breakdancing also exhibits a similar level of athleticism, such as being able to use only your hands and arms to levitate off the ground, while also maintaining an unwavering form that is parallel with the floor. The capabilities behind the genre of hip-hop do not stop there. Aside from the wide, angular movements, hip-hop incorporated elements of fluidity, where the dance becomes more loose and free-flowing. These movements are typically reflected in liquid dancing and the boogaloo technique, where the arms, legs, hands, feet, and hips move in a smooth gesture meant to imitate the flow of water. Hip-hop holds no restraints when it comes to allowing the body to express the meaningfulness of a given rap or artist. In short, each of these characteristics come together to create what we now know as hip-hop. In this section of the presentation, here are some examples of crumping, liquid dancing, popping and locking, and the boogaloo. These elements were blended seamlessly into one another in the film Breakin' by Joel Silberg. Additionally, the video depicts a form of social dancing that often occurred in the 1980s, with the incorporation of the African American, Afro-Caribbean, and Latinx populations who typically engaged in this cultural practice.
There will ever be, because the ice so cold, the tea is hot. Come on, we let her rock, show me what you got. The tea is hot, the ice is free, I will turn out all who suck the MCs with the greatest beat. The producer then needs to have on the floor. Never free no more, because I'm an ice cold rapper on the girls' door. To rock that, ice tea, not the wax. Slow down, all you hops and break the mind. Don't stop, the beat's not hard to find. I take you up to the high degree. Don't stop, to the TOP, to this end, and you don't quit. So take the glove beat and rock with it then.
E lo chiami breaking questo?
Devi studiare ancora!
Further adding to that, we are now going to look at the concept of art and hip-hop. There are many different perspectives on what art truly looks like, from hip-hop sexualization of the female body and the misogyny often spewed by male rappers portrayed in popular songs most dancers perform to. Art does not seem to be the first thing that comes to mind for this genre of music. However, if we put into perspective Suzanne Langer's ideologies surrounding the philosophy of art itself, we realize that hip-hop perfectly fits within this mold. Langer's main philosophy is embedded in the idea that art is a form of expression meant to break the barrier between what we know through our physiological perceptions and what it truly means to experience life through the sensations of a human being. For scholars who have researched the topic of hip-hop and partook in the culture that it is conveyed through, many artistic elements seemingly coincide with Langer's ideology. As time marches on, many of the misogynistic outlooks on females have shifted towards this enlightenment, such as breaking from social norms that typically come with identifying as a woman. In fact, many people look at the concept of hip-hop as empowerment, in other words, being able to lead a non-conforming lifestyle. Hip-hop has become a source of expression, joy, and freedom, sensations that people often do not experience until they've begun their practice. Additionally, performers who typically utilize the hip-hop dance style are rarely able to find or understand who they are prior to the cultural engagement hip-hop allows them. In fact, if you look at the origins once more, these were typically dance styles that were dominated by economically disadvantaged people. With no other means of expressionism, hip-hop has become a physical representation of rejecting the idea of materialism, so long as these individuals were bestowed the privilege of having a voice, or at least an outlet to express their own individualism. Clearly, hip-hop is capable of aligning with the philosophy of art. The expressionism of hip-hop dance is intended to break social norms, in addition to giving the human body an ability to express the sensation of what goes on in the human psyche, especially in populations where their voice or opinions are often snuffed out because of negative social factors such as sexism, racism, and classism. The conversation on hip-hop has such a robust background where many people had the freedom to express themselves and create subgenres that fit into whatever form of dance that they're trying to portray. The messages that many of these forms of hip-hop and breakdancing were able to present to the public in order to bring light to certain social injustices that have persisted since the beginning of time. Overall, I thank everyone for listening to my presentation, and this is my bibliography.